Oh yeah, man, we're into it now. The tractor's laying all on this piece of plywood over here. So, it's a Boomer 40. What are you doing over there? Clutch has gone out in it. So, here's your engine. The clutch is right there, where that nut is, the little bolt sticking up. That's the bell housing where the clutch is located. So, let me get over on the other side so I can get back farther. To do one of these, to get to the clutch, you don't pull the engine or the transmission. You cut the tractor in half right there, and you roll the back away. You leave the front there. I've got about 3 hours into it. So far, it's not, actually, it's one small thing that's really screwed me up, been the biggest pain in the ass. Basically, you take the hood off, disconnect the battery cable, take a whole lot of bolts out here to remove these sides. One of them's off. This one's not coming off yet because your lever that lets you lock your rear end has a steel spring split pin in it, and you can't get it out. So I'm either going to have to take the lever off underneath the tractor or just leave this floorboard here hanging. But the floorboard had to be disconnected because it's hooked to both the back and front of the tractor. So it doesn't matter if it stays there, it's just kind of in the way. You have to take the entire firewall assembly out. It's not as bad as it sounds. There's a frame here you remove, only 4 bolts. It's laying over there. Then this is just sitting here. So you disconnect your brake and clutch cables. You're supposed to disconnect all the power steering hoses. There's 4 of them, one from the pump, one back to the pump, and one to the left and right wheel. Well, they're all connected right there. It sounds like a good place to disconnect them, but it's impossible to get to. And that's not where they tell you to disconnect them anyhow. Okay, because this steering doesn't actually have a thing that goes down to the wheels. It's a pump right there, and you spin the tire and it pumps the fluid out. So what they tell you to do is to disconnect it there, right here, and on the other side, and at the pump right there, and then at the pump return, which is right there. So you disconnect those 4 and unroute them and pull it all up, and then use the crane and lift this out. This probably weighs about 200 pounds, 150 pounds. It's not really heavy. There's not a whole lot you have to disconnect here. Unplug your wiring, which is only a couple plugs. Your linkages for your brakes. It's all pretty obvious. Now, the biggest problem I had here, the thing that stopped me, was the forward back shift lever right here has another one of these stupid steel pins that won't come out. Right here, this is supposed to disconnect right there and pull up. Then this goes down into the transmission, and you can't get to the bolts unless you get that pin out of there and pull this whole thing off. So what I did was I got to lift up high enough to where I can get to the bolts now, and then I washed it off with the hose because it's full of dirt. Now, if I undo those 2, I can get it out. You normally want to leave that in there and disconnect it here, but you probably aren't going to get that pin out, so you're going to be forced to do it down there. And to do that is a piece of metal sticking out right here, which acts as a guide to keep this from flopping. You have to get rid of that. You have to jack it up as high as you can. And as long as your power steering cables are connected, that's going to prevent you from going up too high. But it gets you up high enough to get to the nuts and bolts. If I disconnect the hoses, I can go up even higher. Well, I go up from here to where I hit this, which is another 10 to 12 inches higher. That high up in the air, I probably only need to take it fully off the tractor because I'll have enough room right here. But if you got it up that high and you disconnect the hoses and unroute them, you might as well just take it and get it out of the way. So, to get it to the point where you're going to start splitting it, it's really only, well, I don't even have my tools down here, so I have to keep running and getting stuff, and it's 1/10 of a mile away. Every time I need something, I got to go get it. If I actually have my tools here and stuff, I'd say to get it to this point, 90 minutes. If you've never done it, 2 hours, 3 hours. It's not a big deal. Splitting it won't be too bad. We use this hoist on the back of the engine, hold the engine up and put a jack stand under it, block these wheels so this can't roll. Then we're going to use this Harbor Freight aluminum racing jack, 2-ton, on top of cinder blocks and wood, and support the transmission right in front of the rear wheels. And the Harbor Freight jack will roll with the tractor, and we're going to roll the tractor back by pushing on the tires and get it back, and that'll pull the shaft out, expose the clutch, and then we can get in there and fix it. So, you know, if you know what you're doing, you can definitely do this. It's not a real big deal. It's not a big tractor. Uh, One of the problems is there's a lot of stuff they don't tell you how to do because this has a front end loader on it, which isn't standard. And so they don't tell you what to do here. Well, the loader comes right off on this thing, about 10 minutes, 2 pins, pops right off. But then we have the frame. Well, the frame is right there too, that black piece. That's got to come off because that's holding the front and rear tractor together. But it actually connects right into the side of the frame and the transmission right there. So we can unbolt that and actually use that as something to rest that jack on. Okay, and then we can use straps and strap that jack to these rails to make sure it doesn't move and the tractor and the jack stay together. So that should work out pretty good. It looks like it's going to be pretty simple to split. I haven't ordered the parts yet because I got to make sure it's an 11-inch clutch, not a 9, with however many splines, and not the wrong kind of splines. So I won't be able to order it till Monday. But I imagine we'll be slapping it back together in 1 or 2 days. So I don't know what they charge to do this, but it's probably way too much.